Starlight to Red 5, how's it looking?
Just finished up. On my way back to you.
Hold on, it looks like there's something on our radar. Do you have a visual?
Starlight, could you repeat? I'm not seeing anything out here. Wait a second. Oh my god.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
This is Houston. Say again, please.
Yes, Houston, we've had a problem.
What you just heard was the voice of astronaut Jack Zwigert aboard Apollo 13. What was supposed to be NASA's third manned mission to the moon quickly turned into one of survival. This message would come just seconds after disaster struck and hours before one common item was used to save their lives: duct tape. But if it weren't for one mother's persistence during World War II and the President of the United States, this item would not even exist, and the 3 astronauts on the Apollo 13 mission would not have survived. It all started in a factory where a munition was manufactured for World War II. A woman by the name of Vesta Stout saw a problem that had the potential to cost soldiers their lives: lousy tape. She worked on an assembly line that packaged rifle grenade cartridges. They would be packed 11 to a box. That box was then closed with a thin paper tape and covered in wax to make it waterproof. They were meant to be easy to open. Unfortunately, this was rarely the case. There was a small tab of tape that was left loose before the wax was added. The tab would tear from the box before completing its purpose. Often under enemy fire, this would leave the soldiers scrambling to get the ammo, and possibly costing their lives in the process. Vesta, aware of this issue, came up with a solution: better tape. It needed to be easily rippable, but also durable and waterproof. But to bring this idea to life, she'd have to set her sights high. She approached her superiors and government inspectors at the plant with the idea. Ultimately, she was laughed off and ignored. They told her,
"Oh, forget it. Don't be silly. The government knows what it's doing. You can't do anything about the government."
adding that you can't change tape. To them, it was not going to happen.
Well, the government can make mistakes as well as anyone else.
Vesta had snapped back. Determined, she did the next thing that came to her mind to do. Something that would change the course of history. Write the President of the United States of America a letter. And what she did in that letter was quite clever. She included diagrams of how her idea would work and look, but she also appealed to the father in him. Franklin Roosevelt had 4 sons, each of which were serving in the war.
I have 2 sons out there somewhere. You have sons in the service also. We can't let them down by giving them a box of cartridges that takes a minute or more to open. The enemy taking their lives that could have been saved.
Vesta's words to the president didn't go unnoticed because a mere 2 weeks later, she received a letter from the War Production Board. Her idea was greenlit. The letter even expressed interest in any future ideas she may have, and called her recommendation for the revised tape to be of exceptional merit. The WPB got a division of Johnson & Johnson to manufacture it, as they had a long history of producing surgical adhesive tapes. So they got to work. Developed using a thin layer of rubber-based gray adhesive that was applied to a thin but durable duck cloth backing and coated in a waterproof plastic, duct tape was born. Yes, duck with a K. Vesta was sent a letter from the president for her idea and was awarded the Chicago Tribune's War Worker Award. It would go on to be used in both World War II and later in the Vietnam War. During this time, it didn't look as it does today. It was an olive green color blending in with the standard army-issued colors. The duck cloth is why it was actually originally known as duct tape. Well, that coupled with its water-resistant status. Just like on a duck's back, water would just roll off the surface. And during use in the war, duct tape earned new names like 100-mile-an-hour tape, hurricane tape, and riggers tape. It received this name due to it being used to repair army vehicles, but also because of its role during the Vietnam War, where it was used to patch or balance helicopter blades. Duct tape also came in handy to bind wounds in place of a band-aid, patch boots, fix weapons, and even to fasten dog tags together to stop the sound of them hitting each other. This would only be the beginning of duct tape's versatile abilities, because shortly after the war in 1950, things really started to change. This company acquired the rights to the product, and it began being sold in hardware stores. It was now available to the general public. And you must know what that meant for the future of duct tape. Anyway, later in the 50s, duct tape began being used to hold heating and cooling ducts together. This is when the tape had the subtle name change occur, from duct to duct tape. It also changed its appearance to match the ducts it was sealing. And in 1960, this HVAC company trademarked the name duct tape for their flame-resistant duct tape. It was said to be capable of withstanding temperatures of 350 to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. But it would later be written into building codes that duct tape was not to be used for duct sealing. Besides, it had bigger purposes on the horizon. Its next big debut? Space. It all started with NASA's Project Gemini in 1961, and duct tape has been aboard every space mission since, thankfully too, or else these 3 astronauts may have never lived to see another day on Earth. It was April 11th, 1970, and NASA was attempting its 3rd manned mission to the moon. It was successfully approaching its 56th hour into the mission, when out of nowhere, disaster struck.
Okay, Houston, we've had a problem here.
The spacecraft they were in had blown an oxygen tank and things went downhill fast. They were no longer on a mission to the moon, but rather a mission of survival. They were going to need to slingshot around the moon and return home. At the rate they were going, they wouldn't make it. They needed to make a change and make it fast. Their survival lay in the lunar module. Separate from the command module, it was designed as their ride to the moon. Now, it would be their ticket home. The only problem, it was meant for 2 people for just under 2 days. But they now needed to safely carry the 3 astronauts for 4 days. Thankfully, they'd have enough oxygen. But their worries lay elsewhere. CO2.
The main thing that we had to worry about, we found out, was the carbon dioxide in the lunar module.
The canisters in the lunar module that absorb gas in the air were not suited for 3 people in the tight space, and they would become useless within hours, leaving the 3 men to suffocate. The solution wouldn't be easy. You see, the command module used square canisters and the lunar module, round. And like the saying goes, you can't put a square peg in a round hole. Or can you? Since this was the only avenue that would see these men home to their families, there had to be a way. That's where Ed Smiley came in, an engineer with the ground crew. He got to work immediately. The biggest thing on Ed's mind, whether or not the astronauts had duct tape. Once he knew they did, everything fell into place.
I felt like we were home free. One thing a Southern boy will never say is, I don't think duct tape will fix it.
With the help of this saving grace, along with the cover of the flight manual, a plastic bag, and tubing from one of the spacesuits, it all came together. Ed made a prototype and had the instructions carefully conveyed to the astronauts who were able to successfully replicate it. The 3 men would make it home. Had someone not figured that out, we wouldn't have survived. Duct tape had saved their lives. This was only the beginning of duct tape's mighty reign. Remember that company that bought the rights to duct tape back in 1950? Well, a year after, Lovell, Hayes, and Schweikert set their feet back on solid ground thanks to duct tape. It got a new owner, a man named Jack Call. And he had some changes in mind that would turn the product into what many know it as today. First, he changed the company name to Manco. Then, in an attempt to stand out from the competition, he brings back duct tape since this name had fallen out of use since the end of the war. Jack even developed a genius marketing plan to go with it. A little yellow cartoon duck appeared in the brand's new logo. And then, with the help of this colorful new image and name, Jack began sending greeting cards to 23,000 hardware store managers. Not just once, but 4 times per year. This enabled Manco sales to jump from nearly 0 to having a customer base that controlled almost 40% of the duct tape market in the US. In 1998, Manco was bought by this new German company. But duct tape wasn't without its competitors. The late 1990s saw this American conglomerate successfully operating a duct tape division. At $300 million, it became the US industry leader of the product. And in late 2005, this company introduced its own version of duct tape, Gorilla Tape. But don't be too quick to count out this little guy. With all these brands popping up with their own duct tape options, the company who started it all, with the help of a little yellow duck, decided to fight back. And when duct tape was bought by this company in 2009, the new owners decided to come out with another brand. This newer, premium version of duct tape was born. There were now 3 big players in the duct tape game, all of which still compete for buyers' attentions today. Regardless of the brand, duct tape in general has only risen in popularity over the years. There is even an annual festival dedicated to the tape in Ohio. It's a tool many swear by. For example, this Canadian television series that aired from 1991 to 2006 saw duct tape as their cornerstone, even driving up duct tape sales for 3M, and eventually, in 2000, appointing the show's lead as the ambassador of Scotch duct tape. In every episode, the star, Red, tackles a project with the help of duct tape.
And this will require the handyman's secret weapon, duct tape.
And then there is this television show. Taking on the task of testing out supposed uses, duct tape has provided quite a lot of opportunity for content. The show's duo, Jamie Hyneman and Adam Savage, have tested duct tape's ability to be used to create a hammock, canoe, a bridge, parachute, functional cannon, Roman sandals, and more. Duct tape is not a perfect solution to anything, but with a little creativity in a pinch, it's an adequate solution to just about everything. With this adage in the back of consumers' minds, it's a go-to and trusted commodity. In fact, the global duct tape market is huge. It's valued at $4 billion and is expected to continue to just keep growing, predicted by Global Newswire to surpass $7 billion by the end of 2032. And it's all thanks to one woman, one mother, who, needing to help her sons, wrote a letter to the United States President. Her persistence and wise, convincing words are the reason for this invention coming to life, only to in turn save lives.